it was this trauma bonding kind of situation, where you have to ignore, and you have to just kind of block out the parts that are so painful, just so that you can feel good, you can receive whatever it is that it might be, something that's somewhat loving, somewhat affectionate, and so we focus on that, and sort of forget some of the really more painful, the really hurtful emotions, and so then we get into relationships where those subconscious parts, those parts that have been blocked, kind of are running the show, and we might tolerate someone who's humiliating us, or we might tolerate someone who's just always putting us down, just because we're used to that being part of also getting love. And I mean, it's not real love, but it's what we got. It was all tied into the trauma too. And so it's that separation, separating out those pieces. And the more that the kid inside can feel loved and safe, and from you, from your own care of her, the less she's going to want to try to seek out that familiar kind of dynamic. And so then you can start having a relationship from a more adult place, where you are meeting someone from a place of feeling more whole, and feeling a sense of self, a fuller sense of self, and you'll begin to attract people who can mirror that. And it's a little scary to start having good relationships. I find it brings up stuff, and there's still a lot of vulnerability, and doubt and uncertainty. But before I started doing this work, I was just getting into one bad relationship after another, and the main theme was that I was being verbally, just sort of put down a lot, and made to feel small, and made to feel like not good enough, and not worthy of love. And thinking back on it now, it's like, how could I have ever even been in those situations, or even tolerated it? How could I have stayed in something like that? But it's because I was getting some other aspect, and I just ignored those parts. And because I also felt like those things were true about myself, and so on some level, that that I wasn't worthy, that I was to blame for issues in the relationship, even though obviously it wasn't just one-sided, it wasn't just me. And a lot of those things that were being said to me were not even, they were just lies, and just ways to control, and be hurtful, to keep me feeling small, keep me feeling like I needed them, like I couldn't get someone better. So it's based off of their own insecurities too. I think people in relationships, if they're coming from a dysfunctional or wounded place, can pick out where their partner is really hurt, and then you just kind of dig into that, and press that button in order for that person to feel like they have to stay in that situation, because these things are true about them, and because if a guy is really insecure about themselves, they don't want a woman who's really strong in themselves, so they're gonna try to keep you down. And so it really, yeah, there's a sense of being a victim, and I think, like, as a child I was a victim, but when you begin to heal, there's a certain responsibility, to kind of look at your part in an abusive relationship, if you really want to grow and heal, and to see where we tolerate certain attention, certain negative attention, where we accept these things about ourselves, and the work is to really begin to look at those places where we feel those things, and where we believe those hurtful things that we're being told, and to begin to to recognize that those things, first of all, aren't true, and where do they come from? Where is it rooted in? Is it, I was told so much by my father, things that were lies about me, and made to feel that I was bad, that I made mistakes, and that if I made a mistake, it was punishable, and that I couldn't really be a kid. I couldn't do something wrong. I couldn't have an accident. I couldn't, I would be scared to ever say something wrong because I would get hurt, and he would get angry, and so I right away would lie because it was just so scary. I wouldn't be able to access my truth and my voice, because they were so threatening. So it made it really hard to connect with my feelings and myself. And of course I couldn't have feelings, the feelings that were really going on inside. I had to act like I was really strong and stoic, and that I could handle what he was doing, because it gave me a sense of control and power. But ultimately I really wasn't I didn't have control, I didn't have power, and we have to recognize that, so that we can begin to see where we had these mechanisms, where we hold these mechanisms as adults, because they no longer, as adults, they end up becoming a limitation, and causing conflict and creating problems. And so, one, it's important to recognize where we didn't have power, where we were helpless, and where we were victims as children, because that's the absolute truth. But then as an adult, to see where we're no longer in that situation, and that we can protect ourselves, and we can begin to really give ourselves the things that we did not receive as children, and we can reparent ourselves. We can, by really taking care of ourselves, putting our needs first. The more that we get support and help, and build trust with people that are really on our side and there for us in an unconditional way, we can begin to build unconditional relationships with ourselves, so that we can really get out of these situations and these dynamics where we are being where people are not really honoring our highest self and our truest self, and what we really deserve. What everybody deserves is to be treated with love and kindness and compassion. In order to be able to receive that, one has to really feel that sense uh, of unconditional love within ourselves, and it really is. And it's kind of a cheesy thing, maybe to say, but it really begins with self-love, and it's not just like a abstract thing. Like, self-love is really a practice, an exercise. It's an action thing, and there's a lot of different ways of going about it, but ultimately, it's where that child, it needs to be met, where she's stuck in various places in her past, where she didn't get a chance to really have her feelings, didn't get a chance to be angry, didn't get a chance to be sad, or to feel that sense of injustice, and to begin to recognize those places where we might not really honor ourselves, and to begin to give ourselves that kindness, that compassion, that gentleness, that support, that love, that care, and really prioritize, like really put ourselves first. And so when we get into relationships, we have a strong foundation within ourselves, so that we don't let anyone walk over us, or take advantage of us, or be manipulative. We just wouldn't accept it, and when we see it, we're not gonna tolerate it, and we're not gonna stay with a person. Nobody's perfect, and I think we do in relationships. You have to make compromises, but there needs to be what I'm learning recently, because I just got into a relationship where for the first time I felt like, wow, this person is really on my side, like he's like on my team, and it's like feels really collaborative, like we're working together on something, and that was like something totally new for me. Like, I've never experienced that before. It's so weird, like to look back and be like, wait a minute, all these guys that I was with were like never on my side. They were always like kind of like working against me in some way. Maybe they saw parts of me that were really special, and maybe they highlighted those things, but they couldn't really like appreciate all of me, and they would even make me feel bad, or they would be, keep me down or feel competitive because they weren't secure in themselves. And I just was like kind of blown away just thinking back and like, wow, that I was always having to kind of be protective on some level of myself with men who were supposed to be on my side. And I mean, I had a relationship, a couple where before this, where they were definitely really sweet and loving and caring, but where it's like the codependent parts of where we kind of we sort of fell into roles that didn't really feel like we were coming from very whole places within ourselves, and we were just kind of um, you know um, using each other in ways that weren't healthy, in order to just to get our needs met, which is totally normal, especially coming out of unhealthy dynamics through growing up. And you end up making compromises sometimes, even if it's not any kind of extreme thing, in order to just feel comfortable and safe and cared for. And then over time, I realized, well, I really want to be able to care for myself in the ways I'm trying to get from these guys, so that I can have more freedom and more of a sense of um, yeah, so that I can know that when I'm connecting with someone, that I'm not connecting with them in order to just get my basics or basic primary needs met. That I can come from a place of really wanting to share with someone, and to be able to give and give myself, give something of myself to them, and be able to receive something from them. And I think in a way that feels just more I don't know, more authentic, and just more supportive and positive, and where we're not draining off of each other.